So I don't know if you guys heard, but the WBC recently came out and said they don't care about Andy Ruiz. Means nothing to him. Cannon fodder. Right? No, look, I joke a little bit, but seriously, Mauricio Sulaiman, president of the WBC, came out recently and he said, look, we're having a meeting next month, or we're having a conference down in Mexico, and at that event, at that conference, at that meeting, however you classify it, we're going to be listing all of our title eliminator fights. Ruiz versus Wilder is going to be one of the ones that we name. So he already came out and confirmed it. Hasn't actually been officially named. That has to be done at the meeting. But he's come out himself and he said, look, we're going to order Wilder Ruiz as a title eliminator. Okay, great. Unless you're Andy Ruiz, okay, great. Unless you're somebody who cares about Andy Ruiz. Look, man, I like Andy Ruiz as much as the next guy. But let's think back a little bit, right? Let's take this in a little bit of context. Who amongst us thought Andy Ruiz was a world-class fighter prior to his fight with Anthony Joshua, the first one? Not many people knew his name. Not many people had an idea of who this guy was. I mean, he was an amateur boxer, right? Worked his way up through the ranks. He was successful, came into the pros, worked his way up through the ranks. He was successful. But that wasn't even a fight he was supposed to have. He stepped in as a late replacement, right? Anthony Joshua was supposed to fight, Big Baby Miller. That's the fight that was supposed to happen, dude. There was a lot of trash talking going into it. There was a lot of bad blood building up to that fight. Big Baby Miller was considered to be overmatched. He was a big underdog going in. So I think he was using that trash talk to kind of really try to get underneath Joshua's skin, really try to draw him out, really maybe try to draw him into a slugfest where he could increase his chances of winning. Nevertheless, he gets popped for a dirty drug test or like 2 drug tests or something. There was something crazy about him, man, but the guy gets pulled from the fight. Maybe he got popped for 1 dirty drug test. Joshua said he'd fight him anyway. Then he got popped for another one. And the state regulating authority was just like, man, are you crazy? We can't do this. Whatever the case may be, on short notice, he gets pulled. Andy Ruiz steps in. We all know what happens next, right? One of those Cinderella stories. Huge upset, 25-1, 30-1. I don't even remember what the odds were. But he went out there and just ended up scoring this huge upset. I remember Joshua came out, dude. He looked so stiff. Like, it was probably a huge letdown in the fact that he wanted to go out there and put it on Miller. But he ended up losing this fight. Comes out in the rematch, ends up winning it. But ever since then, we've seen Andy Ruiz mentioned amongst these top heavyweights. When we talk about guys like Usyk or Joshua or Fury or Wilder, one of the other names that we mentioned is Andy Ruiz. So just last week, we saw Deontay Wilder come out and, I don't want to say it was a comeback, but that's the way that it was built. Right? That's the way that the fight was built up. Him versus Helenius was Wilder's comeback. He wasn't even out for that long. But it was built as a comeback. I think it was done that way just because of the promotional aspect to it. It's like we want to put this part of his career, that first part, we're going to set that behind us a little bit by saying that this is a comeback. And it's good marketing. I mean, the guy was the champ. He was going out there. He was running through everybody. He was tearing people apart. He was getting renowned for this power that he had. And then he goes out there and gets stopped twice by Fury. Phenomenal trilogy, man. 3 fights for the ages. A lot of wear and tear, a lot of punishment delivered. Wilder took the worst of it, gets stopped in the last 2 fights. It's a good marketing campaign. It's a good marketing ploy to frame that as the past, and now we're having a comeback. Comes out and says, man, I got maybe like 3 years left. I want to fight all the biggest guys. I want to make another run. Awesome. Comes out there against Helenius. Tears his head off in the first round. Punches him would look like, wasn't even a power punch it looked like. I get it by definition. It's a power punch because it wasn't a jab. But you know what I mean. He didn't pop the hip. He didn't drop his shoulder into it. It's the punch that you don't see that hurts you. It's the punch that you don't expect that hurts you. Nevertheless, he had to deliver a tremendous amount of force with that shot to take a man as big as Robert Helenius and put him on his back. Just out cold. So in the post-fight speech, he comes out and he's like, hey, look, I'm thinking about Andy Ruiz. And as soon as he said it, I was like, man, that is not going to be a good fight for Andy Ruiz. Look, Ruiz is shorter. Yeah, he's got fast hands. He punches in combination. He's got a good ring IQ. But you know what he's got? He's got slow feet. You know what he does? He puts his hands up for defense. You go into the gym all the time, they tell you keep your hands up. But you know what? I've seen Wilder knock guys out with their hands up all the time. I know what it's like when you got those little 10-ounce gloves and they start to get sweat on them on top of it. They're packed all tight. Dude, blocking that punch, even if it directly hits the glove, Wilder's got the type of power that'll go through that glove. And what about when it hits the glove and it slips off and makes contact anyways? Then it's even more forceful. What about when that little glove, you place it a little bit incorrectly and you've got it covering down here by your chin, and that shot that Wilder throws comes up here off the top of your head, bounces off of your temple? Look, you need better defense than that when you're talking about fighting a guy with the type of punching power that Deontay Wilder has. You got to do stuff like Fury, where you keep him on his back foot, keep him off balance, right? Fury also likes putting those really long arms out there that just kind of tangles up the space, clogs up the lanes, so that Wilder can't get as much like free run on his punch, can't throw it unencumbered. So there's a lot of things that he was doing. You look at a guy like Luis Ortiz. Ortiz saw a lot of success at times when he was fighting Wilder. What type of defense was he using? Very slick, right? A lot of very subtle shifts and movements with upper body and head movement, right? The way he used the footwork to place himself at angles so that he would have advantageous positioning and the ability to use his timing to avoid a lot of punishment. That's not what I see from Andy Ruiz. Again, I don't want to take anything from him. The guy's a good fighter, but look, man, we're talking about him going in there with arguably the most ferocious puncher of all time. You can make an argument that Deontay Wilder is the hardest punching heavyweight of all time. And if you don't say that he's the hardest puncher of all time, great, but you got to put him in what, the top 3, top 5? Either way, man, this dude's got the type of power that just starches people. Devastating power. He's becoming better and better. His skill set is continuing to increase. I said going into that fight with Helenius that he was going to look better than ever. I said that the time off was going to help him feel rejuvenated and refreshed. He's got this relationship with this trainer now, Malik Scott, where he seems like he's in a place where he's willing to be taught. Now, I think that was always the case when Mark Breland was training him. Breland's awesome, man. We know what he did in his career, and we saw that what he was able to do with Wilder, taking him from just that raw, complete, unrefined product all the way up until when it is that they parted ways. He did great with him. He did a lot of work. Wilder was as raw a talent as you get, and he made tremendous strides. And now he's at a point, switch trainers, working with Malik Scott, continuing to allow himself to be taught, continuing to allow himself to grow and be instructed. That's huge. Not all fighters are like that. You reach the heights that Deontay Wilder reached, there's a lot of people who allow their egos to be involved. They don't want you telling them what to do. They don't want you to tell them to run. They don't want you to criticize them, talking about throw the right hand this way or try this or try that, because all they can think about is their success. All they can think about is what they've done and what they've accomplished. And even though that's great, that doesn't mean you should be running your own camp now. That doesn't mean that you can just continue to do what you've always done and rest on your laurels and think that's going to lead you to future success. But he doesn't seem to be doing any of that, right? As a matter of fact, like I said, he seems to be looking better. He came out, he was trimmed down and slim for that last fight with Helenius. And it's like, how's the power going to translate when you're only 14 pounds or 218 pounds? Man, he threw all that nonsense right out the window with that devastating shot. Got to imagine it's going to be the same thing against Ruiz, man. Got to imagine that if they make this fight happen, that it's going to be bad news for Andy Ruiz, man. The shorter guy, smaller guy, needs to find a way to work himself inside, but doesn't have elusive footwork, doesn't have quick footwork, doesn't use feints well enough with the upper body movement to get in. What's he going to get caught with? Is it going to be a chopping right hand that comes down and catches him on the temple and drops him? Is he going to bait him in and catch him with an uppercut? I don't know, man. But either way, I don't think it's going to go well for him. So let me know what you guys think. Am I underestimating what Ruiz brings to the table? Is he going to go in there and work on a few things and surprise everybody? Is Wilder going to overlook him? Is Wilder going to realize that he's not able to fight on the inside once Andy's able to get in there? Maybe he works the body or something. I don't know. I'll tell you what, he's going to need a trick up his sleeve. But let me know what you guys think.